Thank you. Well, you fight like the devil to just keep your head above water. Chained to whatever you got that you can't throw away. And you're shooting through space on this river of life that you're riding. It's whirling and sucking you deeper on down every day. So you turn to your trusty old partner to share some old feelings. And you find to your shock that your faithful companion is gone. So long, Tonto. And the truth slowly dawns that you're lost and alone in deep water. Okay, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me on this this Ford C900 by AMT series build. We're taking a standard AMT C900 and we're customizing it so it could match the actual real prototype, which I found on video, and it's at an auction. So it's an auction. It's a video for an auction that took place where they sold this particular little rig, and I loved it so much I downloaded it, and I decided one day I'm going to build this, and that day has come today. So I just showed you a shot of all the fun part where you're acquiring all the parts and pieces, and you're seeing if they fit or if they'll work, or you're matching it against the real one. You're zooming in and out. You're doing all sorts of fun stuff like that. Excuse me about that. Apparently, I thought that this was it. This is last night where I thought about something and I had an eye-opening idea. No, we're still gonna do some more modification that I did not even plan I was gonna be doing, and I'll share that with you guys today. Let's get straight to the nitty-gritty. What are you gonna do? Sorry if my arm is in the way, guys, but I really want to show you guys this picture. Okay, that's the real deal there. That's a screenshot of the prototype I'm trying to copy. Immediately, I could see that something is not the same as on my AMT model here. And immediately I could see that the unit I'm copying is a lot shorter. Your rear wheel well, or your rear wheel setup, is right up against the fuel tank, and your fender, your wheel fender, is definitely up against the fuel tank. Where my AMT one is not, or it may seem that it's not. It's actually not. I already took measurements. So let's do this like that. This is a pattern I'm using for the width of the fuel tank, how I'm going to use it on my rig. My fuel tank would sit right about here. So that makes my rear wheels appear like they're about, well, if you go from the point center axle, that's about 3 foot distance, and if you put the fender wheel on there, you got this large gap of 2 feet, about 2 feet right there, depending on where I set the fuel tank. And so that tells me right away I'm probably gonna have to cut down that frame, but it's actually not a problem. I'm gonna cut the frame down. I'm already taking my measurements, and we'll bring the rear wheel setup with that fender closer to the fuel tank, so you could get that cute look which the original has. And that photograph right there makes it really, really apparent and obvious. I'm so into this now. What I did is I'm taking measurements off the screen to see if my not my idea, but to see if I'm correct or not as far as the frame being smaller on this particular rig, and I'm correct. What I did is, in an easy one, you can see here, let's go back down to the AMT one. Now, this could be, for those of you guys who are trying to customize or build a model, one of a kind of something you admire, something you saw in real life or you own or something like that, you're going to come up on these forks in the road where you got to make a decision. And that decision is, well, I'm this far, I'll just keep doing it the way it came out of the box. Or are you going to take the other road, the other path, which is, oh crap, I came up this far, now I'm going to have to extend the project even further if I want to make it correct as what I'm trying to copy off the screen. Knowing full well you're going to add days, hours, you know, probably have to go in and do some surgery. And you're going to bump into these type of decisions all along custom builds. If you're going to build out of the box, you're probably never going to have to worry about that. So if you're going to be doing your own thing, it seems like you're constantly coming up to these forks in the roads, these roadblocks, and everything stops. And you think about it at night, you think about it driving to work the next day, you think about it at work the next day, and you really, really think about it. And I think that's where one-of-a-kind modelers, no matter what type of model they're building, whether it's armor or trains or trucks or whatever, when you see these guys and you follow their persistence on getting it right, after a while it starts to become addictive to me anyways. And that's the only way I prefer to build from now on. That's why I take my time with these rigs, and I've got a whole room full of them. But that's not why I got them. I want to pick out one at a time that means something to me and that I want to build. So I was at that fork of the road in the road last night. I had metal inserts inside these frames. So it's not just a simple thing of cutting. And if you cut, what are you going to use? If you use a cutting wheel, and the metal inserts inside are going to heat up real quick and stay real hot up against the styrene, and you don't want to have warpage issues. So there's a lot of weird things like that you got to think about, or I had to think about it. But I am going to do it. I'm actually going to do it. How I could tell the frame was too long on my AMT kit here is if you pick up the cab, it almost seems like it could drop down between those two wheel axles. Not quite, but almost. Pretty damn close. And on the one we're trying to copy, that cab will come nowhere near dropping down between these two axles. Look at the size of that cab from this corner to this corner, and look at the wheels. So that's another tip off that that the AMT kit that I'm using right now is going to have to be slightly modified in order for me to go ahead and copy the original prototype. Long, boring explanation, but these are reference shop manuals. Anyone who's interested in tackling on a custom one-of-a-kind project, this is something you're going to bump into all the time during your build. And I literally mean all the time. And you're going to have to make the decision. Do I want more work? Oh, I thought I was almost done with this damn project, and now someone said this is wrong, I got to redo it, and it's going to add another week or two to the build. Yeah, you're going to have to make those decisions all the time. And you know what? Every time I've made those decisions, I ain't gonna lie to you guys. At the end of the day, I'm glad I did. So there's our nice little rig now. There's your drop-down tow hitch. Let's see if we get you guys a good shot here. Right there's good. Real quick before we run out of time here. So these are the various parts and components. This is your plates for your fifth wheel. We have our tow hitch in there, our drop-down tow hitch. The fuel tank. Knowing that I was going to have to build my own fuel tank for this girl. Let's see if I can get you guys a better picture. Okay, no, let's refer back to pictures of the real prototype, which was sitting at an auction yard out in New Jersey when they shot these videos. And then apparently from what I read online, it did sell, and someone wound up buying that little rig there for $15,000. But had I known, right? But I want to point out, and we're going to zoom in real good, that fuel tank, that unusual fuel tank, that one-piece giant fuel tank that straddles the frame and goes on to the other side. Well, I wanted to thank Tom Klein, like always. Tom, you're a wealth of information, sir. What you told me to me was golden, and what you have told me in my past videos has been golden. Between the two of us, we're building better models, but that applies to all of us, not just the two of us. It's anyone who's listening on or reading or following, not just my videos, but anybody's builds. You can be immersed suddenly into the build itself because of some knowledge you may hold that the builder did not know or was not aware of. So sheet metal sides, not sheet metal, but I'll call them sheet metal for sake of purposes. And it's probably some sort of steel, or I don't know what they use on fuel tanks. It has to be steel. And then your safety tread walk pattern steel put on top of that. So for me to build that fuel tank, oh, here's a good shot where you can see the wheel of the rear axle is about a foot away from the fuel tank. 1 foot, not 3. And the fender comes right up to the fuel tank. So that's another good photograph that tells me the frame on the AMT is too long for what I'm trying to do, and I need to shorten it. So we're gonna do the following. I want you guys to see this. So I did dig through my parts boxes, and I found, there we go, I did find some diamond tread safety pattern or tread pattern, and this one's actually this has a slightly different pattern than the one on the photograph there, but I was still going to use this because this is a common kind of, almost looks like it's not an X, but it looks like an X from far away. And this is common. You see this all over the place. This is a piece of styrene. It's chromed. It's off of the Revell Big Rig kits in 1/25th scale, and it's the headache rack with toolboxes, I guess, built-in toolboxes. If I use this, I was going to have to do a lot of cutting and splicing, and it was going to be a lot of work. So I'm not sure if that is the way I wanted to go. This diamond plate here is from PSC, Precision Scale Company, which is a model railroad outfit that makes brass detail parts for brass locomotives, and O scale and HO and some G. But this diamond or this tread pattern is way too tiny, kind of HO scale. So I couldn't use this one. Here's another bigger piece, also from Precision Scale Company. And in this one, the safety pattern is a lot bigger, but it is still way too small for what I'm trying to use. And that's just a piece of sheet brass. And finally, I did have it. This is this is what I'm going to use right here. This is a stainless steel sheet. But not only is the tread pattern of the correct size, it's actually the correct tread pattern. Almost looks like a weave. I'm sure it's got a name to it. I think I saw double hatch or double weave something in the description online. And this is a piece of brass. This is a sheet brass that we're going to use to build the fuel tank. We'll make the fuel tank. We'll do all the folds. We'll make it look like in the photograph. And once it's built, we're going to do our tread pattern. We'll apply it on top, kind of like a, let me see. Well, here. What we're going to do, or what I'm doing, is this is just for toying around. I did this specifically for the video for you guys, but it's not to scale. What we're going to do, or what you're going to do when you come to something unusual as the fuel tank we want to build, before I start cutting any brass, I'll make a cardboard mock-up. I'll take my measurements, draw my lines, make my cuts. This is okay. This is actually way too wide, but we're doing this for the camera. So what we're going to do also, you grab so in this case, if this was correct, we would put it over a piece of brass and we would trace the outline, and then we'd cut the actual brass into this shape. Pretend this is now that brass shape. It worked great. So what I'm going to do is I'll come back here and make my folds where I have my fold lines, which are already pre-measured. So you kind of get the idea what we're trying to do here. Let me do this off camera because my closer to my eyes. All right, we just squared it up a little bit. So you would get something like that. If the measurements to this were correct, you know, you're going to test fit it constantly on your original one. But if it was correct on the settle tank, then this is the correct pattern. This is the pattern I would open up again and put it on my brass, cut it out on the brass, do my folds, and then this is the fuel tank that I would put on the actual model. Now, once the fuel tank is done, let's say this was correct. Let's say that guy there was correct. Then what I would do is I'd have to probably epoxy this guy in and use a lot of clamps, and then you would, like an overlay, just cover the fuel tank on top. Even comes down the sides. The fuel tank I'm going to make is going to be totally enclosed. So you won't have this opening or this opening or these openings. They'll be closed up, and then this thing will just be put on the outside of the brass with epoxy to mimic the one we have on the video screen. And then we just drop this down on top of the fuel tank. Whew, hard explanation. I didn't know how I was going to pull that off on camera. I kind of practiced a little bit. Definitely practice on this. But this is the kind of idea. These are kind of ideas and gimmicks you're going to come up with in order to get where you're trying to get. And had this not worked, I have never done this before off camera. I didn't practice the actual cutting and folding. I would have looked like a big idiot right now in front of you guys. But no, it worked out because it's basic stuff. And but don't be, I wasn't afraid to look like a big dummy doing this and and crashing and burning on TV. And that's another thing too. If you're gonna do one of a kind custom model prototype models, is yeah, you can't be afraid of any of the steps. If you don't know how to solder, learn how to solder. If you don't know how to paint, learn how to paint. You don't know how to wire for lights, like see me BMW does, then learn how to do it. And there's a little fear factor there, maybe built in, I don't know, but if you're trying to get your model to where you want it to go, you kind of have to work a little extra harder with your hands and with your brain in order to pull that off. Maybe that's the attraction for me, is I have to work a little bit harder. So real quick, we're gonna make this quick two-parter. I came up with the springs for tilting the cab open and close. Right now I'm debating whether it's going to be a actual working cab working off the springs. And I've been playing around with the springs rigidity, and I've opened them up and curved them and stuff. And you know what? I may make that cab sprung loaded, working sprung loaded cab. And I'm really leaning on that. And if I do come up with something, I will definitely put it out in a video. Let's take an intermission right here, about 10-15 minutes. Why don't you guys go grab a drink or go take a little quick stop. We'll all come back here for after the intermission, and we'll continue with part 2. Next part 2 is going to be quick. It's fun. Actually, it's going to be a blast. I have a big surprise we're going to do right here on camera. And to put my money where my mouth is, because apparently I said I have no fear and I can, oh, blah, 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 blah. Well, we're going to put me to that test right here in front of all you guys with exactly what I've been talking about. And it's going to be a crash and burn, but in this one, if I burn, it's going to be horrible, and it's going to be all right here. We'll be back, part 2.